In this video, I want to talk about scanners. Scanners basically are a mechanism for getting different types of information from either a user or a file or a string. And it has a lot of built-in powers that are very interesting and useful. So basically, to use a scanner, it's a class, right? We have to import it. And the job of a scanner is to break what we call a stream of text, so some sequence of characters, into tokens. So tokens are things separated by white space, and white space is either a space or a tab or a new line. Down here you can see various different amounts of white space, and again, the amount doesn't really matter. So like 12 is a token here, David is a token, 45.3 is a token, A is a token, and that is a token. So a scanner works on this idea of clumps of non-white space text, and then tries to see if it can interpret it in different ways. So it can either read it as a string, or if it's something that can be turned into like an int, you can read it as an int as well. So it's pretty handy in that way. So let's just make a real quick scanner here. And I'm going to read from a string, which seems like a funny thing to do, but sometimes you get the string from some other source and you want to break it into pieces. And I'm just going to call that scan here, even though my slide's a little bit different. So I need to make a new scanner, and hi there. And notice Eclipse is complaining. It says, I don't know what a scanner is. And this is, again, one of the few places where I think the quick fix is a good idea. Just import it, and it adds the import line up top. Now it's complaining it's not been used. So what can we do with this? Well, I can ask for the next token. So I'll just say first equals scan dot next, and I'm going to print out first. So if I run this, it says hi. So I've got one token out. Now this next is actually kind of interesting behavior. It does two things. It returns the current token it's on, hi, and then advances the scanner to the next token that's there. So in other words, once next has happened here, it grabs hi and returns it and stores that in first. But the scanner is now ready to read this next token here. And it's that sort of dual behavior that actually causes people a little bit of confusion as to what's going on there. So just kind of keep in mind that you're sort of chomping tokens as you go, but you don't have to say like move to next or anything like that. It's sort of all built into this next thing here. Now, again, I can interpret these as different types of things. So I can say int num equals scan dot next int. So next is basically pretty general. If there's a token there, I'll grab it as a string. Next int only works if there's something that can be interpreted as an int there, and we'll talk more about that in a second. So I can also then print out num, and I get those two things. Now notice from this console output, it's a little hard to tell that there's sort of different things going on here. If I just grab that as next and stored it in a string and printed it, it would look the same. It would be the letters 1 and 0, right? But by grabbing it as an int, I can do stuff to it and like add numbers to it and multiply it and do math and things like that. So it's nice if it is a number and you want to treat it as a number, to grab it as a number. Now if I had let's add another string in there, and I run it, I get an error, and it's basically saying I cannot grab the word is as an int, right? So then it fails here. And so one can do stuff with exceptions, like we talked about in the last video, to manage this, but there's other ways. Basically, scanners can check for the existence of something. Is there a string token to get has next? Is the next thing interpretable as an int? So has next int, you can ask before you grab it, right? So the has next doesn't advance it. It just says, is the current token I'm looking at something that has a form of an int or a form of a string? And a pretty common pattern is to check with it has first, and then grab it if it's the kind of thing you want. Oopsie. So we can do some sort of while loop here to grab a bunch of stuff. And so I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to have while there is another token to get. So, and I don't care what form it is now. I just want to know, is there something I can get? So has next, right? So any token available will make that true. And then I can, for example, grab the token. Token equals scan dot next, and again, next takes the current token as a string and then advances to the next one. And I'm going to print out this token. If I run this, okay, I get high is 10 there. These are all strings though, right? They're all were grabbed as strings, stored as strings, printed as strings. So I can do a little more work. I still want to ask if there's any token at all here, has next token. And then I'm going to say if the thing that the next token that we're looking at, if it can be interpreted as an int, oops, then actually get it as an int. I need to int val equals scan next int, and I'm going to print it out. And else, if it's not an int, we can just grab it as a, oops, get it all over the place here, as a string and print that out. I'm missing an end brace here. Okay, so what's the logic here? We're going to loop while there's tokens, and I'm going to check for if it's just a string token because I just care if there's any token at all. I'm going to ask if that token is interpretable as an int, then grab it as an int and print it out. Otherwise, grab it as a string and print it out as a string. Now again, we're not really able to see the difference here, but this 10 is an int. In fact, I could then do math on it just to show that it's a number, right? So 10 to 11. But this kind of pattern of go through a bunch of stuff while there's stuff remaining, tokens remaining, then figure out what it is and grab it as the way you want to grab it. All right, and this is a pretty common structure. All right, and then next we're going to look at how to use this kind of approach in getting stuff from a file. Thanks.